Welcome to the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man Victor Pride. And right here on the Podcast for Winners, we're bringing you motivation and mindset for the killers and real dealers, the makers and the takers, the winners and the grinners, and goddamn, even the sinners too. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friendly friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man, Victor Pride. And what do you say we just jump right into it today? At the end of the last episode, Noble Savage asked us, Vic, can you talk more about your idea of superiority and inferiority among humans? It seems that you believe that a certain white race is the superior race, which is under attack by the elites to defile the pure blood via interracial sex. The white race is generally taller than other races, and you believe that a taller a man is, the more superior. The more light-skinned, the less defiled. Okay, let's jump right into this today. Noble Savage accused me of being a white supremacist and a height supremacist, so let's see if that is accurate. Now, when it comes to race, inferiority, and superiority, that has nothing to do with it. You see, nature put us here the way that nature wanted us here. Mother Nature separated us the way that she wants us separated. Mother Nature put Europeans in Europe. Mother Nature put Africans in Africa. Mother Nature put Asians in Asia. And Mother Nature put Indians in India. That's the way it is. We didn't choose this. This was chosen for us. And it takes a very conceited mind to think that we know better than Mother Nature does. It takes a dumb mind or a malevolent mind to think that you can mix these races and that you will get one over on Mother Nature, that you will prove to God that you know better than God, saying, see, we can mix the races and it's all sunshines and rainbows and lollipops. Well, the reality is it's not sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops. It's rape, torture, destruction, and terrorism. Now, I don't blame any other races for this. I blame our governments squarely. It's not the fault of, say, the Muslims that they're flooding into Europe. The reason they're flooding into Europe is because they are being given money to do so. And some of their countries are being destroyed. So it is not the fault of Muslims that they are flooding into Europe. That doesn't make them our friends. That does not make them our allies. That does not make us good little partners. But it is not them that is doing it. And we don't give a damn about inferiority, superiority. Europe belongs to Europeans. Asia belongs to Asians. The Middle East belongs to Middle Easterns. And Africa belongs to Africans. In Europe, the European man is superior in all regards. In Africa, the African man is superior for his surroundings, for his nature. In Asia, the Asian man is superior. But when you take the Asian man and you put him in Europe, he is inferior. When you take the African man and you put him in Europe, he is inferior. When you take the European man and you put him in Africa, he is then inferior. All races have their strengths and their weaknesses. The European race has a high IQ, a high curiosity, and a high ability to invent new things and do new things. The African is more of a physical superiority. Can dance very well, run very fast, great at exercise, great at physical things. Not great thinkers, but great physical beings. And in Africa, there is no winter. Do you know what that means? There's no reason to think ahead in Africa. Tomorrow is going to be just like today in Africa. You don't need to plan ahead. It is not a necessity to plan ahead, to think ahead, to build ahead. There is an abundance of food, an abundance of resources in Africa. Therefore, there is no reason to plan ahead. This is not the case in Europe. In Europe, we have winter. In winter, you will die if you don't plan ahead. So the European man must be a thinker. He must be a planner. He must plan far in advance or he will die. This is not the case in sunny climates where food is everywhere and abundant and there's never winter, it never dies. If the food is always there, there's no reason to plan ahead. The jungle will provide. The land will provide. All you have to do is go out and get your food. This is how the African man evolved. This is how the Southeast Asian evolved. This is how the Indians of South America evolved. A cold weather person, on the other hand, must evolve planning for the winter. This is why you have Europeans and you have the Northeast Asians like the Japanese and the Koreans and the Chinese with the ability to do more things than their Southeast Asian counterparts. It is a matter of evolution, it is a matter of design by Mother Nature, a matter of design by God. All races are superior to the land that they are built for, and they are inferior to lands they are not built for. And in fact, if you want to talk about inferiority and superiority, there is no such thing as racism. There's no such thing as racism. It's a joke that they play on you to get you to fight off of each other. Do you know why there's no such thing as racism? Because all races are superior and all races are inferior. The stone cold reality is that all races in the world believe that they are the superior race. All races believe this. The whites believe they are the superior race. The Chinese believe they are the superior race. The Japanese believe they are the superior race. The Jews believe they are the superior race. The Africans believe they are the superior race. In fact, there's nothing wrong with you if you believe that your race is the superior race. The reality is there is something wrong with you if you don't believe your race is the superior race. It is a mental illness to not believe that your race is the best. That is a mental illness that we call leftism. And you'll notice that in writings of the past, there are no words like racism or sexism or homophobia. These words didn't exist in the past because all people of the past were not so stupid, they were not so crazy to think that all races are equal. Every race believes that they are the superior race, and they are correct. For the land that they are in, they are the superior race. And words like racism only exist to get you to go against your fundamental nature. Your fundamental nature is to protect your race, to love your race, to love your blood, to protect your blood. But when you bring in words like racism, homophobia, sexism, and then you make it a matter of equality and say, well, you're not being equal if you don't think that the African races are exactly the same as the European races. What this does over time is that it deracinates the people. Deracinates means you forget about your race. You stop believing in your race. You stop believing in your own blood. What it does is it demoralizes you. So words like racism are used to demoralize you and to take away your innate power, your innate ability, your innate pride in your own people. And you must have pride in your own people, in your own ancestors. A lack of pride in your own ancestors is suicide. It is suicide. And that's what they want. That is why they demoralize you. That is why they deracinate you. That is why they say, you don't have a race. There's no such thing as race. Here's what they say. They say, there's no such thing as race, and the white race is the most evil of all races. Well, wait a second. You just said there's no such thing as race, and the white race is the most evil of all races. We all know this is not true. We all know that the whites are not the most evil of all races. We all know that the whites are the most open of all races, the least racist, the most egalitarian, the most equal of all races. That is why races of all colors, of all creeds, flood into the white countries. If the whites were so bad, do you think people would be dying to get into their countries? Of course not. So this is all a media psyop on you. It's a war on your mind. They're trying to make you think that you're so bad, that your race is so bad, that your ancestors are so bad, you're so racist, man, that you eventually become deracinated, demoralized, and you allow yourself to be conquered by flooding incoming armies from the Middle East and from Africa. So that's the reality. We have a race. Our race is our blood, our DNA, our spirit, our ancestry. It's who we are. When you become deracinated, you simply become demoralized. You lose who you are. You lose what you are. You have a complete feeling of emptiness in yourself. If you don't know that you are a member of your race, if you don't know that you are Nordic, Celtic, Germanic, Slavic, if you don't understand that you belong to a race, you are demoralized, and a demoralized person is easily conquered because a demoralized person helps to conquer other people of his own race, of his same race. So they work very hard to create war on your mind to make you think that either you don't have a race, your race is nothing, your race is the worst. They work really, really hard to make you hate yourself and to hate your own race and to hate your own ancestors, which fundamentally goes against your nature. Our fundamental nature is to love our race, to love our blood, to love ourselves, and want to protect and procreate. Now, we don't want to protect or procreate. We want to have sterile sex. We don't want to have babies. We're living under some delusion that you have to make a certain amount of money before you can have a child. Meanwhile, the Muslims have 10 children and they live on welfare. The whites make $60,000 a year and they don't think it's good enough. This is a war on your mind. A war on your mind to get you to not procreate, to demoralize you, to not have white children. to not bring more of your race into the world, to let yourself die. And this is why we see so many of the Western countries dying. We see United States, pride in the United States is dying. Pride in Germany is dying. Pride in Sweden is dying. In France, what just happened in France? First of all, for the last several months in France, the people have started to wake up and they have started to protest the government every single weekend. And we're not talking a few hundred people. We're not talking a few thousand people. We're talking tens of thousands of people in Paris have been protesting the government for months. Of course, you didn't hear about it on the news, because why would you? The news is owned by the enemy. The news is not news. The news is propaganda. The news is a war on your mind to make you think that your race is the worst, to make you think men are bad, women are good, the blacks are good, whites are bad, Muslims are good, Christians are bad. You've got words like Islamophobia. You've got words like anti-Semite. Did you ever notice there's no word for anti-Christian? Did you ever notice that? They just burned down your church in Notre Dame. They burned down your 800-year-old cathedral in Notre Dame. Nobody said anything about them being anti-Christian, did they? What would happen? What do you believe they would say if somebody burned down a mosque? Obviously, they would say that is Islamophobic. What if somebody burned down a Jewish temple? They would call that anti-Semitic. They burned down your 800-year-old beautiful church. I didn't hear a word about being anti-Christian. I didn't hear a word about it being anti-white. I saw pictures of Muslims standing in front of the burning cathedral, smiling about it. So here's the reality. Inferiority and superiority has nothing to do with it. Europe belongs to the European. As simple as that. If you want to call somebody racist for that, fine. By all means. You're very welcome to call me a racist. The word has no meaning. And you can't fire me because I have created my own work. And that is that is the core of Bold and Determined. Create your own work so that you become unbreakable. You can call me a racist. You can call me a sexist. You can call me a homophobe. Here's what I'll say to you. Yeah? And? But I'll tell you what they do. And we all know who they is. Here's what they do. They try to get you to fight with the other races to show who's superior and who is inferior. This is not the real fight. The real fight is not with the Muslims who are invading Europe, though you must deal with that. The real fight is with your own leaders, your own traitorous leaders who allow this to happen. And they want you to think, oh, this is what you voted for. You get what you voted for. Well, the reality is that nobody voted to be replaced. Nobody voted to be replaced. They get you to vote only to make you think that they get you to vote only to give them, they get you to vote as an illusion. They need your consent to rule over you. When you vote, you give them consent. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It only matters that you vote, because when you vote, you are saying, I agree that you can rule over me. Here's my vote for the person to do it. So voting it's more than a waste of time. Voting ensures your own enslavement. Doesn't matter if you vote for the left or for the right. They all do the same thing. Here's what they do. They tell you what you want to hear to get your vote. Then you vote for them. Then they do what they were going to do anyway. So nobody voted to be replaced because nobody ran for office saying, if you vote for me, I'm going to replace all of you. That's not the way that it happens. They promise one thing, they deliver another. All they need is your consent. What you have to remove from them is your consent. If you don't consent to their authority, they don't have authority any longer. The solution is as simple as opting out. Not believing they have authority. The more you vote for them, the more they're going to screw you. The more you vote for them, the more they're going to burn down your churches, your 800-year-old cathedrals. The more you vote for them, the more they're going to replace you. But the less you have to do with them, and the more you concentrate on building your own communities with your own race, your own blood, your own spirit, the more you do that, the stronger you grow. The more you rely on them, the weaker you grow. Understand that your blood means something. Your blood is your spirit. It's your soul. If you say all races are the same, if you say, oh, my race doesn't deserve anything, we've got to take in all races of other kinds, what you're saying is, I no longer have a soul. What you're saying is, I have no spirit. What you're saying is, I'm completely demoralized. What you're saying is, I'm ready to be conquered. However, when you say, this is my race is my blood, my spirit, my strength, my community, my family, my people, my land, and nobody will take it from me. When you say this and when you mean it, that is when you become strong. You know why? Your race is superior for your land. They can try to tell you different all they like. You know what's happening? It's failing. They are failing. And you and I are winning. You and I are waking up. Our blood is waking up. We are understanding. We have a race. We belong to a race. Our race is our family, our culture, our countries, our blood. When they want to destroy your race, they want to destroy you. They want to destroy your blood. They want to annihilate you. Just don't listen to them. It takes immense propaganda for them to be able to do this. Propaganda that's news, billboards, advertising. Just don't let it affect you anymore. Just don't listen to them anymore. They use people to come in and call you racist like that means anything. If somebody calls you a racist, here's what you do. You say, yeah, and? That's all you do. Some bitch calls you a sexist, here's what you do. You say, yeah, and? Somebody calls you an Islamophobe, you say, yeah, and? Somebody calls you an anti-Semite, you say, yeah, and? It's a battle of your mind first and foremost. When they control your mind, they control you. When you are not in control of your own mind, somebody else is. And when you say that, oh, all races are the same, we've gotta just let all these Muslims come in our countries and rape us and kill us because it's our duty. They have one control of your mind. They have one control of you. You are cattle if you let them deracinate you. If you say to yourself, race doesn't matter, you know what you say? You know what it means when you say race doesn't matter? Here's what it means. It means, I don't matter. I'm nothing. I'm just nothing at all. I'm just a little mouse in the world. I'm not nothing at all. I'll let the wolves come in and eat me. That's what you're saying when you say that your race doesn't matter or that race doesn't matter at all. Listen here, you fucking fool. All other races in the world know that race matters. It's only the stupid whites who don't know this. It's only the stupid whites who don't know this. And that's because whites have been brainwashed the most. A war has been committed on the minds of the whites, more than the blacks and the Asians and the Muslims. All other races in the world, in their heart, know that they are the superior race, except for the fallen white man. The white man is fallen. He must stand back up. He must stand back up and take what is rightfully his. Europe is his. United States is his. Canada is his. Australia is his. New Zealand is his. That's the way it is. Iyas asks, do immigrants increase the culture of a society? The answer is no, because culture is the race. Culture is the blood. Culture is the people. Society is the people. It is the blood. It is the race. When you change the demographics, you change the culture. When you flood a culture with new demographics, you completely annihilate the existing culture. So immigrants, by definition, never can increase the culture of a society. What they do is they degrade the culture of a society. And that's what you see in Europe. That's what you see anywhere where they flood in immigrants from Africa or the Middle East. You see once beautiful cities become despicable hellholes, disgusting shitholes, nasty. Once beautiful, architecturally beautiful, clean cities, they become utter shitholes, disgusting hellholes. So a culture is the people. And when you bring in people from shit countries into great countries, the great countries become shit as well. That's what equality is. You can never raise the level of the worst to the level of the best. All you can do is lower the level of the best to the level of the worst. So when you want Europe and the Middle East to become equal, that means Europe must become the Middle East. And that's what's happening in Europe. They just burned down the cathedral in Notre Dame. That's a symbol of the European. What they are doing is burning down the soul of the European. It's not a matter of Christendom. It's a matter of burning down the white man, burning down the European. And you know that they're not going to rebuild the cathedral. Now, Macron, the president, whoever, he went on television. He gave lip service to rebuilding and being stronger than ever. But you know they're not going to rebuild a Christian cathedral. They're going to probably rebuild a half cathedral, half mosque. And you know it's not going to be beautiful. You know the architecture of the new cathedral that they're going to build is going to be horrendously ugly to match the new demographics of the country. It's going to be desperately ugly, and it's not going to give hope, whereas the Cathedral of Notre Dame was spectacularly beautiful and gave hope, made you feel good and alive. the new piece of shit they're going to bring you is going to make you feel despair. And like I said, 100% I guarantee you, they're not going to rebuild a new cathedral. They're probably going to build a half cathedral, half mosque, or some kind of new age, modern art piece of shit that inspires nobody. And you know, I guarantee you this, the architect for the new cathedral is not going to be French. The architect for the new cathedral is not going to be European. I can guarantee you that. He goes on to ask, do you fear the Muslims because they have a strong identity, have emphasis on family values, and marriage is praiseworthy? No, that doesn't have a lot to do with it. And let me reread your question in the voice that I assume you were asking this in, because it's a very childish question. Victor, do you fear the Muslims because they have a strong identity, have emphasis on family values, and marriage is praiseworthy? No. It's got more to do with rape, robbery, theft, murder, destruction of our societies, taking our welfare money, pouring into our countries, and destroying them. Doesn't have a lot to do with your strong family values, considering the fact that the Muslims in Europe are single men of prime fighting age. Doesn't have a lot to do with your strong families, okay? Paul asks, are the invaders in Europe from Africa and the Middle East raping white women out of lust or spite? I used to think lust, but then I realized the U.S. has waged ridiculous wars started by the men in little hats and supported by the stupid American cattle. These foreigners, in turn, aren't smart enough to know who was behind the wars. Instead, they end up hating the whites. Okay, nobody rapes somebody out of lust. Nobody does. You don't rape a stranger out of lust. It's always out of spite or out of anger or out of envy. So the Middle Easterners and the Africans raping white women in Europe, they're not doing it out of lust. They are doing it out of envy and out of spite. These kind of people, they're not sending their best people. First and foremost, they're not sending their best. They're sending their worst. And the worst people of a society always hate the best in a society. And they want to take away what they envy. And what they envy is happiness, vibrancy, and light. Now, the joke is that the immigrants bring vibrancy, but actually what they do is they take away vibrancy. They make everything dark. They take the light away from the eyes of the people. And that's what they want to do when these immigrant animals rape European women. They do it because they want to take away the light from her eyes. They want to take away her shine. They want to make her dark just like they are dark. They want to take her soul away because they have no soul and they are envious. They see this, they envy this, and they want to take it away. It has nothing to do with the wars in their own countries because most of these people are not coming from war-torn countries. That's absolutely false. Some of them come from war-torn countries. Some of them just come from their own shit countries. And that's the way it is. These are not fleeing families from war-torn countries. These are single men of fighting and breeding age that are flooding into Europe. And they want to take what they envy. They want to make the world shit. Just like their world is shit, they want to make everything they see shit. And they want to take away everything that is nice and good. That is why when you walk down the cities in Europe where they are, everything is filthy and nasty and shitty. Because the land matches the people. People from a shit country don't just come to a new country and it stays clean. They bring their shit with them. That's why everywhere the Germans go or the Italians go or the Spanish go, it gets an upgrade. It becomes better. That's why everywhere some of the Muslims go, it gets worse. It gets nastier, filthier. And we don't have to pretend anymore, okay? We don't have to pretend that everybody's equal and that, they just don't have opportunity. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, now they have opportunity. And what happened? They've turned their opportunity into shit. Constantine asks, given that Britain is the default capital of the world with regards to maritime contracts, is it simply unsafe for an American truth speaker to go there? Ramsey Paul and Owen Benjamin both think they'll be arrested if they go there. Do you think such fears are overblown or legitimate? Well, these fears are not overblown because England, in fact, does arrest truth tellers. They will arrest you for Islamophobia. If you stand up for the English in England against the Muslim invaders, they will arrest you. Now, usually they arrest their own citizens and not foreign citizens, but I believe that they banned Rouge from even entering the country. So this fear is not overblown because it is literally happening right in front of us. And like I said, our problem is not the Muslims. Our problem is our own traitorous governments and the foreign elements that have embedded themselves inside of our governments. You see, what happened is when they get you to vote for something, they always have a longer term play. So when they told you about the European Union and said that, yeah, you're going to be able to travel in between Europe and it's going to be a great one European world for all Europeans. It's going to be wonderful. And then what happened? They gave you the European Union. Europeans can now travel inside the European Union without going through border checkpoints and without showing their passport. Well, then they started flooding Muslim and African immigrants into the European Union who can also do the same thing. If the immigrants can get through into Italy or into Spain, they can go into Europe anywhere. They can go to Germany, UK, Sweden, Belgium. So they had a long-term plan to sell you out. So they always pretend that they're going to give you one thing, but they always have an ulterior and malevolent plan to do another thing. So Britain, is it unsafe for an American truth teller to go to? Almost certainly. Almost certainly. Now, I don't necessarily think they're going to do anything right now other than deport you. Probably at the most, they'll just deport you because it would cause an international scene. But they will arrest their own citizens, and they do arrest their own citizens for saying, hey, these Islamics are invading us and we should do something about it. We should not let them in anymore. That's Islamophobia. The British police will come and arrest you for that. So just like in the Bolshevik Revolution in the USSR, they would arrest you for anti-Semitism. In fact, they would kill you for anti-Semitism. They'll do the same thing in modern-day UK. So what really is the difference between the USSR, the Bolshevik Revolution, where they would kill you for anti-Semitism, where they would send you to Siberia? What's the difference, really? And where do you really think it's headed? Where do you really think it's headed? And this is the main reason why I think it's smart for Europeans of certain European countries to get out. It would have been smart for the Russians to get out of Russia before they had to go and do time in Siberia or before they were simply executed. So for citizens of England, Germany, France, Sweden, Belgium, what do you see coming in the future? Because for certain countries, I don't see a real great future. Now, of course, I can't predict the future. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you where to live. But I am saying to you in no uncertain terms, be prepared. Be prepared as best you can. If you are a citizen of one of these countries, it is in your best interest to have a backup plan, somewhere to go in the event that they start doing what they did in the USSR. When they stop burning your churches and start burning you, you might want to have somewhere to go. They're already raping you. They're already killing you. They're already stealing from you. And the numbers are not letting up. They're just more and more and more. My best advice, have a backup plan. Have somewhere else you can go in the event that the shit hits the fan. But actually, you know what? The shit already hit the fan. It already did. And it's near a boiling point. You've been a frog in the pot of boiling water for long enough now that you know that it's boiling. You know that it's not too much longer until that frog is totally boiled. Good gracious, friends. I like to keep the podcast light, but sometimes we just have to delve off and we have to speak the blunt, honest truth. People are not equal. Races are not equal. Some races are your enemy. And most of the races in the world hate white people. Simple as that. They just do. Not all races. The Asians don't hate the white people. Indians don't hate the white people. But the Islamics hate the white people. Probably for good reason, because the United States have been bombing the shit out of them for a long time. So I can understand that. I can understand that. And that's another reason we don't want them in our countries. And another reason they hate the white people is that they have been taught to hate the white people. You watch the news, right? On the news it says, all white men are bad. All white men hold down people of color. Well, they watch the news too. They're just as brainwashed as you. They're brainwashed to hate you, and you're brainwashed to hate yourself. So it's really totally unnatural, this level of hatred between the races. But it exists, and we have to acknowledge that. Because if you don't, you're going to get your fucking head chopped off. They hate you. They want to destroy you. Wake up before it's too late. Moving on. Ashwin asks, I've been a foreigner in my own country all my life. I live in the Netherlands. However, both my parents immigrated as teenagers with their parents in the 70s from a former Dutch colony called Suriname. This is Dutch Guyana in South America. He goes on to say, there are many foreigners like me who have been born in European countries and have lived there all their lives. We don't really fit in anywhere, not in Europe and not in our own countries. I've never been to my own country ever. What is your advice to people like me who don't really fit in anywhere because of the decisions of our parents and grandparents made? Should we immigrate back to our own countries or try to make the best of it out here in Europe and North America? Okay, this is a great question, And a lot of these people who immigrate from, say, South America or the Middle East or Africa, they immigrate to European countries. They don't take into consideration the fact that they destroy their own family lines. They destroy their own sense of who they are. They destroy their own sense of their own race, and they become a permanent outsider. So these Islamics, these Muslims, and I'm not suggesting that this man who asked the question is a Muslim, but going back to the Muslims, they're never going to fit in Europe because it's not their land. It's not their culture. They're always going to be the outsiders. Europe will always belong to the European. Their plan to annihilate the European and make it a one brown world, it's going to fail. It's going to fail in the end. Europe belongs to the European. You know why? That's what Mother Nature said. That's what Mother Nature said. That's never going to change. Europe will always belong to the Europeans. And in fact, these kind of things, we've been dealing with these kind of things for centuries. These things have happened before. There have been Islamic caliphates in Europe in the past for hundreds of years, in Spain, in Italy, for example. So this is not the first time that Europe has been invaded by Muslim invaders. And it will not be the last time. It'll just be another thing that we have to get through. Now, regarding the foreigners who were born in Europe and don't fit in Europe and have never been to their own countries, they're in limbo, and they're always going to be in limbo. That's the reality that their parents never think about. Their children are never going to fit in. He could be in Europe all his life. He will never fit in. He could go back to Suriname. He will never fit in Suriname. He will never be accepted anywhere as one of their own. So he's always going to be on the outside, like a ghost or an apparition, neither here nor there. And this is these immigrants never think about. They never think about it. They think that they're going to go live with foreigners all their life and everything's going to be, oh, it's going to be great and peaches and cream. And they actually think that the children are going to keep the same cultures and customs of the original culture. But in fact, all of their traditions are going to be lost in the end. They're going to be completely erased, deracinated, erased. That's what happens when you mix cultures. So people say that multiculturalism is good, but what happens when you flood all these cultures into the same one is that everybody loses in the end. Everybody loses their culture. So multiculturalism becomes no culture. That's what happened in America. America's famous for not having a culture. Well, guess what? America did have a culture until it was flooded with immigrants. America had a very strong culture until 1965. A very American, very strong culture. Then they started lying and saying America is a nation of immigrants. Let's bring in more immigrants, multiculturalism. Well, that killed our culture. Multiculturalism is no culture. That's why you have in the United States, people think it's no culture and everything's the same because they have killed the American culture. So my advice for Ashwin, should he go back to his own country or should he stay in Europe where he's lived all his life? Well, you're going to be better off in Europe. Simple as that. In Suriname, you are not ever going to want to go back to Suriname after having lived in Europe. It's not going to be, you're not going to find it pleasant. You're going to find the lack of creature comforts annoying. You're going to find the lack of doing things in a tidy and efficient manner annoying. It's simply, you're not going to have anything in common with them in Suriname. So you just have to exist and make the best of the decisions that your parents made. And in fact, we face a lot of that in America as well, because most Americans are of European descent, even though most Americans came here several hundred years ago. And we have lived here for generations. We're still from Ireland, England, and Germany mostly. So in most of those cultures, Irish culture, German culture, English culture, that was kept up until about the 1965 Immigration Act, when they started bringing in immigrants from all the brown countries instead of solely the white countries. And before 1965, America was a white country. You could immigrate to America if you were from a white country only. That changed only in 1965. So for 200 years, America was considered a white country, as written in the Constitution, as written in the early documents. And that only changed recently. When you deracinate the people, you demoralize the people, everything we've been talking about. And goodness gracious, I'd love to get off of this damn topic, finally. Hopefully we can get back to something nicer. Blanc Neige asks, do you think that traders are our foremost problem? Traders are our number one problem for sure, because nobody would flood our countries if we didn't allow them, if somebody in a key position of power did not allow them to come in. So it's traders and it's leftists that are our biggest problem. Our own people are our biggest problem. And what happens is the alien influence gets to our people in a number of ways. Number one way is through sheer greed and bribery. You can bribe an official to do something. And if you make that official wealthy, they'll allow anything. They'll allow mass immigrants to come in. So that's one way, is through sheer greed, sheer bribery. Another way is through blackmail. There's a very, very sophisticated system of blackmail going on. Most people in power are in power because they're degenerate in some kind of way. They've got the mind of a degenerate. Most normal, strong people, powerful people don't go out and seek positions of power in the government. That's what weak people do. People who feel like they are lacking power, they go and they seek positions in the government to gain power. And these people are of a weak mind and a degenerate mind, and they are sex freaks, sex perverts, homos, sodomites, kitty fiddlers, these kind of things. And they are very easy to blackmail, these people. So greed is your number one way that they get to our politicians. Blackmail is another great big way that they get to our own politicians. And number third, a lot of our politicians are simply mentally ill. And leftism, the belief in that racism is real or multiculturalism is good or sexism is real, this is a mental illness. These people actually believe the things that they say. These are what are called useful idiots. Back in the USSR, they called them useful idiots. And these idiots, what we can call traitors to their own race, to their own country, to their own blood. These people want to see destruction. That's what a leftist is. It's somebody who wants to see destruction of the good and the pure. They hate what they envy. They want to destroy what they envy. And they hate success. They hate light in the eyes. They hate happiness. They want to destroy that. It is a mental illness. So, are traitors our biggest problem? Yes, they are. And that is a great big reason why we simply don't need to listen to politicians or government officials. They are traitors. Now, maybe 85 or even 90% of those in positions of government are just good people like you and I, and they're just trying to do a good job. 10% of those are traitors in key positions of power, and it doesn't matter what the other 80 or 90% want to do, because those 10% have the key positions, and they make the decisions. So nobody voted to have their countries invaded. Nobody voted for that. Nobody ever voted for that in the history of the world. It's traitors and deceivers in key government positions who allow that to happen. Leo asks, I think the best place for whites to relocate to may be Russia. What are your thoughts? That's a great question, and I don't understand the obsession with Russia in this community. Where I don't understand the Europeans and the Americans who think that Russia is some sort of haven for white people. You have to understand, just because they have white skin doesn't make them like you. Russians are very, very different from the Anglos. They're very different. The only thing they have in common is the color of their skin. That is it. They have nothing else in common. Absolutely nothing else. They're not even white in the way that we consider ourselves white. They just have white skin. They're not white like us. They're not Anglo. They're not Celtic. They're not Nordic. They're not Germanic. They are Slavic. That's a totally different race. A totally different race with a totally different mindset, a totally different mentality. So it just boggles my mind when white people say Russia is the last hope for white people. Well, Russia's not white people. They're Slavic. They're different than us, with a completely different mindset, completely different, a completely different temperament. They are completely opposite of us, basically. We've got nothing in common with them. I even hear white men say, I want to marry a Russian lady because I've got so much in common with them. You don't have shit in common with Russian women. They're going to eat you alive because you're too stupid to know that. You're so stupid you think, oh, I'm just going to start a real nice family with a Russian lady and that's all she wants. She's nice and traditional. No. She's there to get your passport and your money and to eat you alive. Do you know that Russia has a higher divorce rate than the United States? And you guys think that Russian women are the cream of the crop? They have a higher divorce rate than the United States. That makes them worse than women in the United States. Now, they look better, of course. Not as fat, but their mentality, listen, I guarantee you might find yourself a needle in a haystack here or there, but you're going to get eaten alive if you go and try and marry some Russian bride because you think you got so much in common with a Russian lady. You don't. You don't got shit in common with the Russians. I've seen Russians all over the world. They are not white. They don't act white. They are not white. They have white skin. That's where the similarities end. They are their own entity. They are their own race, their own thing. And that's it. It's no haven. It's no haven for the Nordics or the Anglos. I guarantee that. Anthony asks, Uncle Vic, I had the misfortune of working with an obese single lesbian parent and her half-black mongrel son. I wanted to slap the little bastard upside the head so bad. My question, how is it best to deal with kids, and is physical punishment necessary? Okay, with other people's kids, just let them be, of course. that little adopted son or whatever it is, he's probably going to end up, he's probably going to grow up and go to jail. So there's no way that kid doesn't have a chance in life. His mother's an obese single lesbian. The kid doesn't have a chance in life. Most certainly is going to end up in prison. In fact, single mothers get all the praise. Well, we know that everything they say is the opposite of reality. Single mothers usually raise criminals, and most people in prison in the United States were raised by single mothers. So you need a father in the household. The father is the discipline provider. The mother is the caregiver. Now, regarding physical punishment, no, I believe physical punishment is not necessary. I believe it is one of the worst things you can do to a child. You're there to protect the child, provide for the child, and care for the child. You're not there to physically assault the child. When a parent physically assaults a child, this leaves severe psychological damage. And you'll find that all serial killers were abused in some way. All people in jail and prison were abused in some sort of way. So I am vehemently against you physically assaulting your own child. It's a breach of trust to abuse your own child like that. How could you hit your own child? How could you do that? Now, I know the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. That can mean two different things. Spare the rod, spoil the child can mean literally, don't hit the child, spoil the child instead. That'll be the good way to go. That's not really what the Bible means. What the Bible means is if you spare the rod, you will spoil the child. That means if you don't hit them, the child will be spoiled and end up in jail like the kid of the obese single lesbian parent. So without discipline, the child is going to grow up and be spoiled, become a dipshit, become a loser. So the child needs discipline. It needs discipline. What it doesn't need is violence. There's no reason to hit a child. There just isn't. Now, unless the child does something like say something nasty to its mother, then slap that little motherfucker right then and there. And you've got to do it right then and there. Like when you catch a dog shitting on the carpet, you got to yell, no, no, right then and there. If the child says something mean and nasty to its mother, slap that little motherfucker right then and there. Right then and there. But otherwise, there's no reason to physically assault your child. But the threat should always be there. The child should be more worried about the threat than in the actual act of physical violence. You should not actually assault your children, but the threat should always be there that if they do something wrong, they must know that you're not a pussy, that you can be walked all over. So even though in your mind you don't believe in hitting the child, you don't really need to tell the child that. You just need to know that it is wrong to actually physically assault your child and can leave undying damage, everlasting damage, psychological damage for all their life. So give them stern discipline, but also give them leadership. And what children are missing today is leadership. What we do, we simply ship our children off to school and let these ridiculous lesbian teachers teach our own children. So we give away control of our children, yet we want to reserve the right to physically assault them when we don't teach them in the first place. It's nuts. Society is crazy. It's crazy. You give away control of the leadership of your children, but you still want to hit them. It's crazy. And what do most people hit their children for? Because they didn't do good in school. Well, school is a prison for children. Of course, some children are not going to do good in school. They don't like being in prison. They want to be outside playing. But you're forcing them to do something completely unnatural. You're forcing them to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day and learn grammar instead of be out fishing or learning to hunt or playing with other children. So it's a totally unnatural way that we bring up children. We force them to go do things that are totally unnatural. And when they don't do things that are totally unnatural, we hit them. We physically assault them. It's nuts. So I am against hitting your children, but I am also against letting other people raise your children. I am of the mind that you must raise your own children. I'm of the mind that homeschooling is the only option for children. The only option. And if you don't homeschool them, you might as well not even have any children. They don't belong to you anymore. If you send them off to school, you have orphaned them, basically, to the school system. You have orphaned them. You have no more say in their life anymore. If you don't raise them, you don't get to have a say in their life at all. You must teach them. You must raise them. And if you don't do that, probably shouldn't hit them either. And you'll find that if you actually raise your children and spend time with them and lead them and teach them, you won't need to hit them in the first place because they're not going to be little shits. They're not going to be attention hyperactive disorder because that's a made-up thing that happens when you send children with high energy to school and they're forced to sit there and pretend to learn grammar all day when they don't want to do it because they're filled with energy. So they misbehave because they don't want to be there. because it's totally unnatural. And when you actually spend time with your children, when you actually teach them, all they're going to want to do is to please you and not disappoint you. And the thought of disappointing you will keep them in line. The threat of physical violence is less of a deterrent than disappointing a parent they love. So spend time with your children. Teach your children. Love your children. Protect your children. Don't hit your children. Show them the way from right and wrong. Show them the way to the light. For heaven's sake, don't hit them. Brad asks, it seems like there will be a time in the not-too-distant future where everyone will be choosing between good and bad, or in other words, God and Satan. The gray area seems to be disappearing rapidly. Can you talk more about this? Ooh, this is a great question. I see this very clearly. I see very clearly that people are choosing between good and bad, God and Satan. I have made my choice. I'm on the side of good forever. I disavow anything bad. I disavow anything that we consider satanic. I'm on the side of good, and I see so many other people who are also on the side of good. And what is good? Good is knowing who you are. Good is letting your blood boil, because when your blood boils, you know you're alive. Good is letting your spirit come alive. We all have an ancient spirit. We all have an ancient spirit. Deep in us. Deep in us. We all have the spirit. We've lost it for too long, but it's coming back. Now we know who we are. Now we know what we are. We are European, white. This is who we are. We are no longer deracinated. We are no longer worried about fake words like racist or sexist. We are here to keep what is ours, to protect what is ours, and to advance our own race, to bring more of our own blood into this world. That is the good. That is the great good. That is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to bring new life into this world. That is the meaning of life, to bring your blood into this world, to show your blood the way, to teach the next generation of your own blood, no matter what color you are. However, all people know this except for the Europeans, except for the whites. So we must explicitly explain to the whites that you have your own spirit, your own noble ancestry, and you must keep it alive. That is the choice between good and bad. What have I told you so many times before? Evil is nothing but live spelled backwards. So when you bring life into this world, you are doing good. When you don't support life, you are evil. Evil is anti-life. L-I-V-E backwards is evil. When you want to destroy yourself and your own people, you are evil. When you want to flourish and see more of your own people in this world, you are good. That is righteous. And yes, you are right. People are choosing between good and evil every single day. People are waking up every single day. Like I said, they are failing in their plans because there are people who are speaking the truth to you. People like myself, people like Owen Benjamin, people like Ramsey Paul, people like Roosh V, speaking the truth to you directly and showing you they have lied to you for so long, they have deceived you for so long. It is time for you to wake up and reclaim your noble spirit. Wake your blood up, know who you are, and fight for it. Luan Irani asks, hey Uncle Vic, I want to share this with the other listeners and readers. 4 months into the carnivore diet, I'm eating 1 meal a day almost every day. 2 pounds of meat per meal on average, a cheat meal here and there. I've gained 9 pounds of pure muscle. My humor improved a lot and my mind is sharp as a razor. Thank you. Why is Jordan Peterson a liar? Okay, great question. Here's why Jordan Peterson is a liar. Jordan Peterson pretends to be this guy who is on the side of good because he won't say Zer or Zim instead of he and her. He'll say he and her. That's how he tricks you into thinking that he's on the side of the good and the righteous, when in fact he is not. He is on the side of the enemy. He is a traitor to the European race, like all professors are. He's a university professor. All of them are the exact same. They're all leftist traitors. All of them. And they all want to see the white people destroyed because the left, inside the mind of the leftist, they want to destroy everything that is good because there is nothing good inside the leftist. The leftist wants to make everything equal, and because the leftist is shit for brains, they want to make everybody else shit for brains. Because the leftist hates himself, he wants everybody who looks like him to also hate themselves. This is why when you go to university, happy, healthy, and vibrant, you come out with green hair, no light in your eyes, tattoos on your face, saying the white man is evil. It's because people like Jordan Peterson taught you to be this way. Jordan Peterson wants you to not know who you are. Jordan Peterson wants you to not be proud of your race whatsoever. Jordan Peterson wants you to be deracinated. Jordan Peterson supports multiculturalism. He supports your death. That's what all leftists do. It's a cult of destruction. And he lies, making you think that he's not a leftist because he'll say him and her instead of whatever. Instead of calling a man she, he'll call the man he. That's how he tricks you. That's how he lies to you to get you to listen to his babble. And all he does is babble. He can barely say anything without... He can't say anything true. And a man who cannot say anything true is not a man. The Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Ask Jordan Peterson a yes or no question. He'll give you 6 paragraphs, and at the end you'll think, well, what's the fucking answer, guy? Is it yes or is it no? You'll never know because he's a psychobabble artist. Praneet asks, is there any karmic reaction for eating animals? If so, is it better to avoid this karma by eating animal products like eggs and dairy, which give us the full nutrition of the animal without having to kill the animal? Weston Price showed the residents of the Swiss Alps did remarkably well on fresh rye bread, fresh pastured raised butter, milk, and cheese. Why do we need to kill animals if abundant health can be maintained with eggs, dairy, and for those who are coastal fish? Okay, great question for the Indian readers and the Indian listeners of B&D who are, by and large, vegetarian. Is there a karmic reaction for eating animals? The answer is no. How can there be a karmic reaction for eating animals when it's the food you are designed to eat? They're playing with your mind. It's a psyop, a psychological operation to get you to get away from your fundamental human nature. The human is a hunter. Meat is the food that we are required to eat. Is there a karmic reaction for a lion eating a gazelle? Of course not. In the same way that there's no karmic reaction for a human eating meat because that is the food that Mother Nature designed for the human to eat. It is the food that God gave the human to eat. It goes on to say that the residents of the Swiss Alps did well on rye bread, butter, milk, and cheese. Well, you forgot to mention the fact that they ate meat once a week. So don't lie about what they actually ate. They ate meat once a week. They would have eaten more, but they did not have enough. Now, can you be healthy on butter, milk, and cheese? You can be healthier than most of the other standard shit diets where they eat rice and curries and things like that. And it's going to be especially better than the modern American diet as well. But the butter must be fresh, never pasteurized. Fresh, never pasteurized butter and milk and cheese are incredible. Now, my personal favorite food on earth is raw milk. Raw cow's milk and raw goat milk. I love raw milk with a passion. It's my favorite food on earth. I could live on that food and nothing else. If I had to choose one food, I would choose raw milk. So I believe that you can be healthy on it. I don't think you're going to be as healthy as you could possibly be without meat, but I think you can do very, very well if you drink yourself a lot of raw milk. Kavita asks, hi, Mr. Pride. I'm 27 years old and pregnant with my first child with my loving husband. What should I be eating at this time? I laid off on fasting, though I was following Cole Robinson's snake diet routines, as I do not want the baby to be burdened. She says, my family is lacto-ovo-vegetarian, and our tribe traditionally has healthy pregnancies when the women consume fresh boiled milk, egg curry, ghee, and coconut oil alongside turmeric, holy basil, and ginger. Any other recommendations for what I should eat? Yeah, you said you have fresh boiled milk. I would recommend you have fresh raw milk because the raw milk has all of the enzymes and the proteins that your baby needs to be super healthy. When you heat the milk, you kill the enzymes, you kill some of the proteins, you denature the proteins. So fresh raw milk is the healthiest drink you can have. And Mother Nature guarantees that fresh raw milk is the healthiest drink you could have. That's why Mother Nature feeds your own children raw milk from your own body. So if you're going to stick with the lacto-ovo-vegetarian, your diet is very good. It's milk, egg curry, ghee. You've got your good fats. You've got your milk. Just go ahead and drink some raw milk because raw milk is far superior to boiled milk. And if you can eat fish or fish eggs are a very great source of nutrition because fish eggs are some of the highest forms of, you can get some of the highest concentrations of vitamins inside fish eggs. So like salmon roe or whatever kind of fish eggs you can get a hold of, these are very great vitamin sources. And in fact, in a lot of the prehistoric cultures that Weston A. Price studied, they would feed the women who were wanting to get pregnant, they would feed them fish eggs to ensure that the baby was as healthy as it could possibly be. JP asks, any tips on how to digest high-fat foods? It seems like my stomach acid, bile, etc. are very low, leading to early satiety and lack of any real appetite. Fats make me feel full and nauseous. What is needed for strong digestion? I have heard potassium is needed for HCl and beets are good for bile. Okay, when it comes to high-fat foods, there are a couple things to remember. When you start eating high-fat foods, you're going to go through a period where you're going to get diarrhea. It's going to be hard to digest them because your body is not used to it. So give yourself a little bit of time. It might take a couple of months. Number 2, and most people are not going to want to hear this, but here's the reality. The body loves raw fats, and the body does not like so much cooked fats. So if you want to be able to digest the fat properly, eat it raw. I'm talking about beef fat. I'm not talking about pork fat. So if you want to be able to digest and get everything from the fat that your body needs, eat raw beef. It's the greatest tasting food in the world. It tastes like cream from milk, actually, is what it tastes like. So it's a really nice taste. It doesn't taste bad at all. To me, it tastes incredible. And I refuse to even cook my beef. I will never eat cooked beef fat when I can eat raw beef fat. It's far superior. And I noticed that if I do eat a large amount of cooked fat, my body just doesn't like it. It just doesn't like it as much. And when I do eat cooked fat, I like only thin pieces of cooked fat. I don't like cooked fat. I don't like globs of cooked fat. I like thin pieces like bacon or just a little bit of fat that's on the ribs that I eat. So I find that raw fat digests very well. My body doesn't really like cooked fat too much. And then third, if you're still having problems with your stomach acid and digesting them, you can take yourself some hydrochloric acid or some digestion aids. Hydrochloric acid will help your body to produce the acid that you need to digest them. So first, I would suggest ease into the fat. You don't want to go from eating a low-fat diet to a high-fat diet overnight because that's just going to be diarrhea overload. So add a little bit of fat here and there. Every day, just add a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Then try to eat some raw. If you're still having problems, if you're still unable to digest the cooked fat, try and introduce some raw fats into your diet slowly, and see how you do. If you're still unable to digest it at that time, then invest in some hydrochloric acid or some digestive enzymes. There are a bunch of digestive enzymes you can pick up on Amazon or at the local supplement shop. Anything with HCl in it will help you digest your food, and let me know how it goes. Michael asks, are there any health benefits to eating desserts like cookies and ice cream? I've been reading, and it seems like some of the people who lived the longest ate plenty of desserts. Maybe they can improve your mental state. Granted, they did eat plenty of animal protein as well. Okay, that's a great question. And on a 5-Star Friday a few weeks ago, I sent out a link about the oldest lady in the world at the time, who I believe she was 120. And this is what she ate every single day. For breakfast, she ate raw eggs. For lunch, she ate an egg omelet. For dinner, she ate chicken. And then she ate some cookies sometimes. So basically, she was on a carnivore diet. And this was the oldest living lady in the world at the time. She's now dead. But so many people say, well, Victor, if the carnivore diet's so good, how come all the oldest people in the world eat vegetables, man? That's not true. The oldest living lady in the world was 120, ate a carnivore diet. She ate eggs and chicken. She ate no vegetables, no fruits. Sometimes she ate cookies. So, are there health benefits to eating desserts like cookies and ice cream? That's a great question. That's an awesome question. Let's explore it. There's no physical need for any carbohydrate in the human diet. In the human body has no need for carbohydrate. So we know that anytime we feel a need to eat it, it is psychological. So the desire to eat cookies and ice cream, for example, it's not to fulfill hunger. It's to fulfill a psychological need. And I have found this on the carnivore diet and during my fasting. I find that I'm completely satisfied by eating meat. My body's completely satisfied. I have no desire to eat vegetables. I have no desire to eat fruits. I have no desire to eat grains. I have no desire to eat rice. But I do have desires to eat cookies and ice cream. And why is that? It's because sugar and fat that you can find in cookies and ice cream, the sugar and fat combination acts as a drug and gives you hits of dopamine or serotonin, and you feel like you need it to pep up. You've heard of people eating emotionally or emotional eating. That's exactly what it is. And I believe the reason we feel the need for emotional eating is because the modern life in the technological age, we're so unnatural from what we should be. And an unnatural life is an unsatisfying life, and it always will be. And that's the downfall of living in the modern age, is that life will always be unsatisfying. And so the number one way that we try to fill this void, or we try to pep up, is through food. Specifically foods like cakes and bread and donuts and sugar and ice cream. Now, most people don't understand this because they never take time away from these foods. But when you fast or when you go on a zero-carb carnivore diet, it becomes abundantly clear why we eat those foods is to deal with some psychological stress, emotional stress, feelings of unfulfillment, hence the term emotional eating. But is there a benefit to doing this emotional eating? I'm not sure that there is, and I'm not sure that there isn't. And I'll try to give you an example. The last time I had cookies and ice cream, I had not had a single carb in about 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure, 2 or 3 weeks. And in this time, I never felt any hunger whatsoever. My body was always satisfied with the food, but in my mind, I definitely craved something else, and I completely understand why. It's a psychological need. It's a psychological way to fulfill something that is unfulfilling. Living the city life is unfulfilling. And when you take away all of your distractions, things like junk food and social media and pornos, when you take away these distractions, you have to be confronted with the reality. Life is unsatisfying in the modern age. By design, there's no possible way to be satisfied in this world because nature designed us to live in a different state, to live in a different way. Nature designed us to live in small communities, in harmony with nature, and where we had complete freedom and complete control. We would go out and we would hunt our food and gather our own food. We had complete control of our own food. Today we have zero control of our own food. We go to a store and we purchase it. But to purchase food, we automatically must be enslaved in some way because we have to get these pieces of paper to go buy this food. So now we are not free to go get our food as we so desire. We're not free to travel as we so desire. If we want to travel somewhere, we've got to go purchase a vehicle. We've got to go get a driver's license from the government for this vehicle. We've got to go get insurance for this vehicle. And then we can only drive in designated driving areas. In nature, we simply walked to and from the places we wanted to go to whenever we wanted to go to them. So by the very nature of society and civilization, we are not free. We have given up freedom for comfort. But comfort, as you know, is never fulfilling. Freedom and having control over your life, your destiny, and your family, that is true freedom. And we have traded that. We no longer have that. So life, by very definition, civilized modern life, can never be fulfilling. And so what do? We try to find other things that can fulfill us. Some people, they do drugs, they do alcohol, cigarettes, gambling. Some people pursue other pursuits like bodybuilding, or they build a business because they want these. They're looking for anything to find fulfillment. And they do these things that, well, they'll have a goal at the end of the rainbow, like the bodybuilding. You've got a clear goal in bodybuilding or building a business. You've got a clear goal in building a business. And so we do these extraneous things to try and fill the void that is in the soul of every living human being. And food is another way that we do that. Tasty food in times of stress or in times of celebration, it acts as a way to temporarily forget and numb the pain of living in the modern world. So are there health benefits to eating cookies and ice cream? There might be. There just might be, because it temporarily numbs the emptiness and numbs the void and numbs the pain of living in an unfree world. If we lived in our totally free world, there would be no such thing as sugar, because sugar only came into existence in the way we eat it about 1,000 or 2,000 years ago. It never existed in the past. It is a drug. It's literally a drug. And it's probably the most addictive drug in the history of the world. Far more addictive than heroin, far more addictive than caffeine. It's sugar. Look around you. Everybody every day eats sugar 3 or 4 times a day. Everybody. And when you get rid of that sugar, it all becomes so crystal clear. You'll have a clear mind for the first time in your life when you get rid of sugar. And you realize that sometimes you just need to say fuck it and eat some sugar. So are the health benefits? Well, the oldest living lady in the world, she liked to eat cookies. She followed the carnivore diet and she liked her cookies. So there just might be. There was another old man I watched on YouTube who was, I think he was 112. And he said, I eat ice cream every day. It makes me happy. He said, I drink coffee every day. It makes me happy. He even drove his damn truck every day because it made him happy. But what struck me was the fact that he did these things because they made him happy. And happiness, really, it seems, is the key to a long and healthy life. And whatever we can do to make us happy must therefore make us healthier, as long as you don't overdo it. And a lot of people who stuff themselves with food over and over don't do it because it makes them happy. They do it because they're sad and they're depressed. And in fact, shoveling and gorging on junk food makes you feel worse. It makes you feel more sad and more depressed and more anxious and more like there's no hope. But if you do it just eat 1 or 2 cookies a day, or eat yourself some sugar every few days or every few weeks or whatever the case may be, it might have the opposite effect, that it resets you and gives you a new outlook on life until you need some sugar again. Now, I don't know that that's true. I'm still learning this stuff because we have forgotten what our real diet is. We have forgotten what we're supposed to eat and when we're supposed to eat it. So I'm relearning all of this stuff. So I don't know that there are health benefits of eating desserts, and I don't know that there are not health benefits of eating desserts, but those are my observations. Anastasios asks, at some point you say that the Germans flee their country because of the invasion of the Middle Eastern and African men. After that, you mention that to flee for them is their only option because an economic collapse or a cataclysmic event will occur, possibly a racial war. Isn't there an obvious second option to stay and fight the Judeo-Masonic Bolshevik capitalist puppets that disguise into governments and try to eradicate the Aryan man? And listen to me carefully. Only the Aryan males are being targeted and are divided by the system because they are the true danger for its survival. Personally, that is the choice for me. I am from Greece and I chose to stay and fight politically and racially by having a family. That's a great point, and I think you did the right thing by staying to have a family. And I think that when looking at if you're going to leave or to stay, obviously you want to look at where you live. And if I were in your shoes, if I were Greek, I would stay in Greece and I would have a family. Greece has not been affected the same way that Germany has been affected. And in fact, the big problem with Germany is that they have a traitorous government who actively tries to terrorize its own citizens by bringing in these animals to rape them, kill them, and then they pay these animals to go there. So they take money from the German citizens and they pay these animals. Now, for me, the problem with that would be I would hate to live under a government like that. I would hate to live under a government like that. And I would personally want to leave. Now, of course, whether you leave or stay, that's a choice that you must make. I'm not here to tell you that you must leave or that you must stay. That's a choice you must make. I am saying it's a good idea to have a second option in the event of a war against the whites or a war against the Germans. But then again, you might just want to stay and fight. So the point is, I'm not here to tell you to leave. I'm not here to tell you to stay. I'm not here to tell you to fight, but I'm damn sure here to say, don't just bend over and let them butt fuck you. And the best thing you can do is what Anastasios did. The best thing you can do, go out to the country, start a family, and stay there where you have roots, where your blood is. Because it's your land, and it's always going to be your land. And if you leave it, it's no longer going to be your land. And we talked about South America in the last episode. South America, to me, is a temporary solution. There's no permanent solution for European settlers in South America. If you come to South America, it's going to eventually become your new culture. You're going to eventually intertwine and become South American. And you'll stop being German. You'll never be fully German. You'll never be fully South American. You'll be neither here nor there. So stay and fight. Yeah, honestly, pretty good bet. Chris asks, the book Might is Right and Friedrich Nietzsche, etc., railed against Christianity as a slave religion. What are your thoughts? Well, Jiminy Jillikers, I know I've got a lot of Christian listeners, and I don't want to hurt their feelings, so Christians, close your ears for a second. Yes, it is a slave religion, but all of these Abrahamic religions are slave religions. Islam is a slave religion, Christianity is a slave religion, Judaism is a slave religion. All of these religions came from the same place. They came from the desert, and they spread like wildfire because if you didn't convert, they would kill you. The same thing the Islamics are doing today, the Christians did 1,000 years ago. So the church at Notre Dame was burnt down. The cathedral at Notre Dame was burnt down. The Christian cathedral was burnt down. Well, guess what? 800 years ago, they burnt down the pagan temple that sat at that very same spot. All of these cathedrals in the world, they're not built randomly in random spots. There are energetic places in the world where the dominant religion places their temple. So 800 years ago, to build their cathedral, first they had to burn down the whatever pagan temple was there. So the Christians of the past, they burned down all of your ancestral temples, and they placed their own temples on top of it. And now they burned down the Christian temple, and they're probably going to replace it with a mosque. So this is history repeating itself, and is these Abrahamic slave religions repeating themselves. And here's a great way you can know if it's a slave religion or if it's an uplifting religion. Go into church. Go into your local church, hear your local pastor preach to you. Do you feel good and inspired? Or do you feel stifled and constricted? And then go and listen to some pagan European music on YouTube. Any kind of pagan, tribal, ancestral music. What happens? You feel it in your blood. You feel it in your soul. You feel it in your spirit. Your spirit comes alive when you listen to your ancestral music, which is pagan. When you feel that, your body comes alive. Walk into church. Tell me what happens. Does your body come alive with energy and excitement, or you just feel stifled? So that's the reality of the Christian religion. There's a lot of incredible wisdom in the Bible. It's probably the number one book of wisdom that we have. However, the religion is, yes, a slave religion. He has another question. He says, I noticed that Ted Kaczynski's manifesto and your opinions of modern society have a lot of similarities. If you have read it, what are your thoughts? Okay, I did read it after I read this question. And what Ted Kaczynski's manifesto essentially says is that technology replaces freedom. Technology is slavery, and I'll try and explain how. Earlier we said that man is meant to live in nature in small communities, and he builds his own homes, he builds his own teepees, he builds his own yurts, he builds his own cabins, whatever. But it's all up to him. He's got control. He's in control of his own life. That is freedom. It's up to him to go and get his own food, to go fish or to go hunt or to go find some berries. He's got freedom to do this. He's got freedom to travel anywhere, anytime, anyhow. All he has to do is go walk there. He doesn't have to go get a designated license and drive on a designated driving path and follow a designated speed limit. Natural man in nature has complete control over his own life. He's got complete freedom. And by very nature of technology, we become enslaved. First, we became enslaved by the agricultural revolution. Now man gave away his own production of his own food. He gave it away to somebody else. Because somebody else is preparing his own food and growing his own food, he therefore becomes a slave to the system because he must abide by the rules of the system to get this food. So he must now work the land, or he must trade his time doing something else to get this food. Whereas before he would just walk in the forest, shoot his bow and arrow, kill a deer. That's food for a week. Now he must work all the time doing some other job that does not give him the clear goal of his food. He's working for pieces of paper, and then he trades these pieces of paper or these gold coins for this food. When you are in nature and you are going to go get your own food, there's a very clear end goal. You go out and you get your food. There is no middleman. You want food, you go and get it. You bring back food, you eat it. It's as simple as that. You just do that every time you want to eat. That's total freedom. You have total control over your own life. Now you no longer have control because of the agricultural revolution. Other people control your food. This therefore makes you a slave. And as technology progresses, man becomes more and more and more enslaved. We think that with the automobile, we have so much more freedom now to go and do whatever we want. Well, actually, you've got to purchase the vehicle. So you've got to work some sort of slave job to get your pieces of paper to buy your vehicle. Then you've got to make sure you have a government-approved license. Then you've got to make sure you've got government-approved insurance. And then you can only drive on government-approved driving lanes. You can't just drive through the grass. You can't drive through the forest. You got to drive where everybody else can drive. And you got to follow a law, a speed limit. Otherwise, they'll handcuff you and take you to jail if you drive too fast. So with each bit of technology we get, we actually enslave ourselves more and more and more to the system. And the technological revolution, or the Industrial Revolution, was about the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. According to the manifesto of the Unabomber, the Industrial Revolution, basically we all started to go and be slaves to factories at that point. We gave away control of making everything. Now factories made what we would have made on our own in nature, and by very fact of that, we give away control of ourselves. And when you give away control, somebody else takes control. Rather, the system in itself takes control. It's not that there's just some power-hungry elite taking control of everything. It's by very nature of the technological system that you just give away control. All people on earth must give away control. They must give away freedom to live in this technological system. And the better technology gets, the more your freedom goes away. And I think we all feel that today. The more tech we have with the computers and the phones and the self-driving cars, it feels stifling. It feels like all of our freedoms are being taken away. It feels like we're the frog in the boiling pot. And we are starting to notice that the pot is boiling and it's really, really hot. And we're all starting to yearn for a return to nature. We're all starting to yearn for our freedom, for our independence. We are all starting to yearn for this, and we can all feel it. It's becoming quite clear to so many of us today that real freedom is not making a lot of money at a good job so you can buy a lot of computers and a lot of cars. Real freedom is getting your own food, building your own house, not paying tax, not paying income tax, not paying property tax, is having your land and the freedom to do what you want to do on it and the freedom to move about freely. That's real freedom. And we don't have that in modern worlds by very nature of the system, by very nature of technology. So according to the manifesto of the Unabomber, technology is the enemy, and we should destroy technology and return to the natural state of man. So do I think he was right? Let me say that he was wrong about bombing people. You shouldn't bomb people. That's going to do nothing for your cause. You shouldn't harm people. It's going to do nothing for your cause. However, he seems pretty accurate in his description of the technological slavery that we are all inside of today. And Ted Kaczynski was a very smart man. He skipped 2 grades in high school. He graduated high school at 16 years old. He got a math degree at Harvard, I believe. Then he got an advanced degree in mathematics. So he was a very smart, very intelligent man. He's also a terrorist. And one has to wonder, it's becoming pretty clear to me that all terrorism in the world is a result of the governments of the world. And I'll tell you what I mean. At Harvard, Ted Kaczynski was in an experiment by the government, by the CIA. And we don't know the nature really of the experiment, but we do know that it affected him deeply. And we do know that the CIA, they do experiments on people. They do mind control experiments on people, and sometimes they create things that are called Manchurian candidates. And these Manchurian candidates are basically people who commit terror. So in the research I've done, there don't seem to be very many people who've committed acts of terror who were not first exposed to some kind of experiments by the governments of the world. Let me just put it that way. So that's neither here nor there. The point is, he's a very smart man who did understand that the world has been enslaved by technology, and the way to freedom is the way of no technology. It's the way back to nature. And there are many people who yearn for this today, who yearn for a return to Mother Nature, who yearn for a return to the ways of our ancestors. So many of us are understanding the reality of the world we live in, the fact that we are slaves to the system. And it's not that we're enslaved to the Jews or enslaved to the powers that be. We are enslaved to the system by the system. By very nature of technology, it is enslaving. With more comfort, you have more chains around your neck, more chains around your legs. You have less freedom of mobility, less freedom of anything. And today, what freedoms do we actually have is a question I would like to pose to you. What freedoms do we actually have? And I'd like to pose to you the answer that we don't have many freedoms, if any freedoms, by very nature of the technology, the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, etc. And I would like to also pose that the answer may very well be a return to nature. That seems pretty clear to me. And it also seems pretty clear to me that these things have happened before in the past. We have had advanced technology in the past, and we have lost it, and we've returned to a state of nature. I believe this has happened many times in the past, because when we look back at these ancient artifacts like the pyramids in Egypt, for example. Now, we're told they were built, 10,000 years ago, and there were tombs for the pharaohs. That's not true. That's a lie. There were not tombs for the pharaoh. They were electric devices. They were energy devices. And the technology that built these things, they were not built by slave labor carrying rocks through the desert. They were built by very advanced technology that we don't even have today. So we know that we had advanced technology in the past. And I would say that the pyramids were built probably 30,000 years ago or even longer. So probably at many times in the past, we have had advanced technology and we have lost it. Now, the question becomes, did we lose the advanced technology through the ineptness of the leaders, or did we lose the advanced technology because we understood as a human species that technology is enslaving us and we decided to do away with it? That's a question we could all ponder. We don't really have the answer to that. It seems to me that the way we are going is so inept, and we're hiring inept people to be the leaders of us, that how could we possibly sustain this technology for too much longer into the future? We're getting dumber. We're hiring dumber people to be our leaders, and they are trying to annihilate the one group of people who actually advance technology and create technology. And when those people are sufficiently demotivated, when those people start to realize that this system is not doing them any favors and they go to live off the land, where is the technology going to come from? Where is the infrastructure going to come from? So it's very interesting to ponder the future, and I think that there's a possibility, there's a chance. Now, nobody can predict the future, but I think there's a possibility or a chance that we could be forced to go back to a state of no technology, simply because this civilization is reaching a breaking point, and can we sustain it or can we not sustain it? Are we going to be able to train the robots to sustain the entire worldwide culture, or is it all going to crumble? Now, I personally am a student of history, so I think it's going to crumble at some point in the future. It's not going to crumble in 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, or even 100 years maybe. But I think at some point in the not so distant future, we can look at we can expect to see a decrease in technology, not an increase in technology. For the foreseeable future, technology is for sure going to increase. But at the same time, with this increase in technology is the increase in awareness by the people that we are being basically enslaved by the technology, and we're going to look at ways to simply get back to nature and to get out of the system and to simply opt out of the system. And we did talk about South America as a way to sort of opt out of the system. I found another way that I've been researching that I think a lot of the European or the Americans will like in particular. For any American listening who is interested in getting back to nature in a real way and is interested in taking control of his life for real and experiencing freedom in a more real way, I'd like to present to you a possible solution that I've been looking into. And this solution is called Alaska. And in Alaska is an interesting solution for a number of reasons. Number one, you've got some of the world's best hunting year-round. You've got some of the world's best fishing year-round. You've got crabbing that is nearly year-round. So you've got your own food. You'd be able to prepare your own food basically year-round, and you would have the freedom to do that. Instead of going to a supermarket and paying for some steaks with these dollars you got working your job, you can actually go out into the world and collect your own food without having a middleman. Also, in Alaska is gigantic. It's huge. Alaska is bigger than California, Texas, and Wyoming combined. And it has only a population of 700,000 people. So another big problem of civilization and technology is that the population grows too fast and become too many people. The human being is meant to live in small communities of people of his own blood, his own tribe. We're not meant to live in these huge megacities or these huge megalopolises. This takes away your sense of purpose in life, your sense of freedom, your sense of knowing who you are and what you are. So Alaska has a very tiny population and a very gigantic. Number three, it's cold. So you must therefore prepare for the winter. So you must be a thinking man to survive the winters of Alaska. In Alaska, it gets very cold. Some places it can reach minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Other places it doesn't get too cold, maybe just about 0 degrees. A couple other great things about Alaska. There's a lot of land for sale. It's not super cheap, but it's not super expensive either. It's very reasonably priced. You can get yourself 20 acres. You could get 20 not so great acres for probably 10 grand or 20 grand. And in a lot of the rural places in Alaska, you don't have any permit laws, so you can build whatever you want to build on your land. So if you want to relocate your family there, if you want to even build yourself a little community there with a larger family, you'd be able to do that without too much interference or any interference from the government. And in fact, in Alaska, there are also many islands. For example, in the southeast of Alaska, there are many islands that are very difficult to get to. So to get to your island, from the mainland, you need a car. Then from the mainland, you'll take a boat to your island. And then from the shore of your island to your cabin, you've got to take an ATV or a four-wheeler. So you've definitely got privacy. You've got options to get your food. You've got options to get the government away from your life. So you've got more options for freedom. It seems to me you've got some really great options for freedom in Alaska. And I don't know why I didn't think about that before, but it seems like a really nice option especially for the Americans who are looking for ways to get back to their roots, get back to living a life of more freedom. And that's not saying that I'm against all technology. I'm not saying that I'm against computers and phones. I am saying that it's very obvious that the more technology we have, the less freedom we have and the less fulfillment we have. I know that for me, the computer has been a lifesaver because now I don't have to work a job. The computer has given me freedom of travel. But along with this freedom comes the slavery to the computer, comes the slavery to the technology. And if we didn't have the technology in the first place, I wouldn't need the dollars in the first place. Therefore, I wouldn't even need to work a job in the first place. So you can see it all comes back to the technology. So again, I'm not against technology. I'm not pro-technology. I'm just saying what I see happening in the world. So Alaska, I think that's a really nice option. Peter asks, What do you think of millennials these days? I'm seeing tons and tons of millennials who keep living in the virtual world, like always on social media and not responsible for their own life. They mostly don't even think about saving for the future, making money, improving themselves, and most of them were still living under their parents' roof. Okay, that does describe millennials, but the problem with millennials starts with the parents and the grandparents and the great-grandparents. So the millennials are simply a result of the society that we live in and the way that we are moving forward. So you can't blame the children for the way the children act. It's the job of the tribe elders to teach the children. And if the children are shit, guess what? The tribe elders are also shit. So millennials are totally lost because they've never been educated. They don't have any life skills because they've never been taught any life skills. They don't have any self-responsibility because they've never been taught any self-responsibility. They haven't been taught self-reliance. So how can you blame them for not knowing things that they've never been taught? This is a result of the society. The total degradation of the society we live in results in the millennials that we have today. So I met a lot of millennials. They're nice people. They're blood just like us. The millennials, they're like us. They're the same blood as us. They have the same hopes and dreams and desires as us. They just don't know how to express it. They just don't know what in the hell is. They don't know their ass from the hole in the ground because they've never been taught it. They don't know. So it's up to people like me to be a voice of reason in this world and to perhaps teach some people who are willing to listen. So millennials, yeah, they don't know shit from shit, but how could they? Peter asks, do you think these so-called superpowers the NoFap community claims are real? He says, I was on my third day of my NoFap journey and felt some of the benefits so far, such as having more drive to pursue my goals and dreams. I also started my third day with literally no naps in between when doing my online business throughout the day, but still skeptical as this might have something to do with a placebo effect. Does masturbation really take that much energy out of you? Ooh, that's a great question. There's actually a lot I've got to say about that. What do you say we cover that in the next episode of the Bold and Determined podcast? We'll see if these superpowers are real. And until next time, my friendly friends, have a nice day.